Hello. I am here to do a kind of a quick speedrun combination walkthrough of a couple of these Snackdoku puzzles I've released. So what we have here is I'm on the main page for Logic Masters. I'm here because I don't directly link to the puzzles in my other ones. So if you're coming from one of my more advanced ones, I just say go to my user page here to find them, because it's easier for me to update that way. So I'm going to briefly show how to do that. We go to user pages, just type in the username, choose, and you can click Publish Puzzles. So what I have here is we have these ones, hot cages, look at what you're saying, a nice nightly snack, and slow down and have a snack. These are 4 of what we call Snackdokus, which I explain inside here. They're puzzles that use a 4x4 grid instead of a 9x9 grid, and they're designed to be very simple and accessible. So this will be a pretty quick video, because if you're solving these and you're new to this, it might take you a bit, but if you're me or someone more experienced and you're knowing what to do already, these are 30-second solves. So shouldn't take too long to explain each one. This is the first one that I made. This was co-created with, I think, Karabet is how you say it. I met her at Sudoku Con. That was a really fun experience with a little workshop teaching people how to design these smaller puzzles. So I'm going to say solve on Sudoku pad. Let's restart. We only have one rule in this puzzle. So we have, again, normal 4x4 puzzle. So 1 to 4 in each box, row, and column. And then we have what we call a slow thermometer. So it's saying digits must increase or stay the same as they move away from the bulb, which is the circle end. So this would have to be bigger than this. That would have to be bigger than this, just because these are in the same region as each other. But this could, in theory, be the same as this, because they don't actually see each other. This could not be bigger than that. I mean, would have to be bigger than this, sorry. So the way we approach this, you only really need one deduction for this to kind of be helpful, is just recognize the fact that this is a 5-cell long thermometer, but we only have 4 digits to use. So that immediately tells you we have to repeat a digit somewhere. And as we just saw, there's only one place where you can do that. These can repeat. So the question would be, what are these? Well, again, we have to use all 4 digits here, just based on the fact that we have only one repeat available. So this has to be 1, 2, 3, 3, 4. That's the only way to make that work. You could do that the other way around by thinking of the maximum, that we have to have a 4 somewhere here, it would have to go here. So maximizing this would have to be the 3, repeat the 3, 2, 1. And now, this is going to solve pretty quick, because we need a 1, 4 in this row. That has to be 4 and 1. This needs a 3. Here we need a 2 and 4. There's already a 4 there. This needs a 2. This needs 1. 2, 4 over here. That's 4 and 2. 1 and 3 down here is there. So that's the first one dealt with. I'm just kind of breezing through these, just so this is a quick video. I'm going to save this one for after, because that's a little tougher. This is the other of the, I think, the simplest of them. Although this is a slightly unusual rule. It's not super common. I know some of them were looking at this and getting confused on how it would be possible, because we're used to cages doing different things is what they do here. But so, again, 4x4 rules apply. And then we have these cages, which are called look and say cages. So it says digits surrounded in dotted lines are cages, which we see here. The number in the top left corner of a cage indicates how often a specific digit within it should appear. And it says the tens digit is how many times, and the ones digit is which number. So you don't read it as 32, you read it as 3, 2. So that is saying this cage has 3 2s in it. This cage has 3 4s in it, because it's 3, 4. The other rule is white dot, these numbers are consecutive. And so if you study the geometry of these a little bit, it's really hard to fit 3 4s or 3 2s into these, just the way they're designed. In fact, there's only one way to do it. You'll notice there's kind of a trend here with these snack puzzles. There's often only one way to do what they're telling you to do. So if we think of it, you can think of it a couple ways, but the way I think of it is we need 3 4s in the cage. One of them goes here, because we can't have 2 of them in the same box. One of them goes here, which means the other 2 have to go in those spots, 4 and 4. And as soon as you do that, Sudoku logic rules out those options now. So we have to have a 4 here. And the same now will happen with the 3 2s down here. It's the exact same shape, same thing happens. We can now finish placing the 2s and 4s, because Sudoku rules out those. That's 4. That's the other 2 there. So we end up with a kind of checkerboard pattern here. And the reason the white dot is here is because that tells us the order of the 1s and 3s. Because if you type in 1, 3 everywhere, there's nothing telling you what order those are in now, other than the white dot. Because that has to be a 3 now. And now that one is done. I think that's probably the most beginner-friendly, even though it's a bit of an unusual rule. The fact that it kind of telegraphs half the grid right away once you realize it. So that's that one. This one is called hot cages because we're combining thermometers, hence hot, and cages. So this is the other type of cage, the much more common type. These are killer cages. And so this is saying these 2 digits must sum to 5. These 2 must sum to 6. And this is a normal thermometer, not a slow thermometer. So digits have to increase as we move along. Technically speaking, you could call this a slow thermometer too, and say that they might increase or might stay the same, but because they're in the same row, they're never going to stay the same. So it would be kind of redundant to call it that. So we can start with some initial information here. In a 4x4 grid where we only have the digits 1 through 4, the only way to make 6 is 2 and 4 together. But we can make 5 with basically anything, 1, 4, or 2, 3. But this is on the end of thermometer. If we think of what the minimum this could possibly be is, if this was a 1, that would be maybe 2, that would be at least a 3. So that can't be 1, takes out 4 from there. This can't be 2, which takes out 3 from here. And so the usual strategy with thermometers is to try to minimize them, and think about, well, what's the smallest each spot could be, or what's the biggest each spot could be going the other way. So the way we'd pencil mark this down is, well, that could be either 1 or 2. That could be either 2 or 3. That's 3 or 4. So we could see that as we have 4 digits available, and we have 3 cell thermometer. So there's only one possible spot where we could maybe jump over a number or skip a number. The way we would kind of say that is it has 1 degree of freedom to it. You know, we could go 1, 2, 3, or 2, 3, 4, but we might go 1, 2, 4, or 1, 3, 4 by skipping a number in the middle. But if you try to skip 2 numbers, like 1 all the way to 4, well, you can't fill the rest of it then. So you only have 1 room, a little space in the middle there. And now if you study these pencil marks, we have 1, 2 appearing twice here. This middle one could never be a 2, because it would mean if we did a 3 here, you could fill that with 4, 1 for the 5 cage, but you'd have to have this be a 2. Ooh, hold on, that's a mistake. I did that wrong. I completely typed that incorrectly there. I was like, that actually works. Hold on. If this is 1, 2, the idea is this can't be a 2, because if that was a 2, that would be 1. That breaks this. That's what I meant to do. Really tempted to almost re-record this, but I really don't want to solve the beginning 2 of those again, so we're just going to leave that in. So that is the point there, that doesn't work. So that can't be a 2 in the middle. That has to be 3 with a 4. 1 there, and 2 here. That makes a proper thermometer going 2, 3, 4. Satisfies that. This tells us the order of the 6 cage. Now we can start filling in the rest here. This needs a 2 and a 3. That must be 3, 2. This needs a 1 and a 4. That's 1, 4. 2, 1, 3 and 4, and then 1 and 3. And there, that one is solved. I think that's a little tougher than the first 2, just because we have 2 rules interacting here, but it's still very approachable. Next, we have a nice nightly snack. That's kind of a pun. Again, I'm trying to use the word snack in all of these to separate them. But we also have an anti-night rule here. So that's pretty common in larger puzzles, but not so much in these smaller ones, because it kind of forces a certain pattern to the grid always. But we have anti-night means digits cannot repeat in cells that are in knight's move away from it, which is a chess move. So the way we look at a chess knight move would be, let's say this spot. Let's color that green and say, where could things not repeat? Well, by Sudoku, we couldn't repeat in those spots, so we mark those red. Not 7s. Mark those red and say green cannot go in any of those spots. But because we have the knight's move, knight move are 2 down and then 1 over, either direction. So we could not repeat in either of those spots. Same for the other direction, going over 2 and then the other direction 1. So over 2, up, down in some way. Can't repeat in those spots. We can't go up or left 2, so that covers that. But you can see how powerful anti-knight is in a small puzzle, that this digit can only repeat in those 5 spots available. So it's pretty powerful. When you place one digit, you can rule it out of almost the entire grid. Gonna look at the arrow first here. Arrows, a number in a circle is the sum of the digits along the arrow that emanates from it. So if that was A4, this would have to be a 1 and 3 combination to say 1 and 3 sum to 4. Then the final rule is what we call X sums. So this 9 outside the grid is saying that in this row, the first digit tells you how many of these will sum to 9 together. So if that was a 2, that is saying the first 2 digits must sum to 9 together. So that would have to be 2 and 7, but obviously we can't do that. We only have 1 to 4 available. So that's an example of what wouldn't work. If that was a 1, that could never happen. That's kind of a little cheat about X sums, is I don't think you can ever have it be a 1 unless the clue itself is 1. Because if you say 1 digit sums to 9, well, it's 1, it's not 9, so that doesn't work either. And so the way we approach this would be, well, we just showed in the rules it can't be 1 or 2 here. We kind of wonder then, well, what if it was 4? If that was 4, that would mean the whole row would sum to 9. And if you think of that, we have 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4. That gives you 10, which is a little too much. So we can't have it be a 4, that must be a 3, saying the first 3 digits sum to 9. We just said that 4 digits will sum to 10, so to make that 9 instead, we need to take away 1 from that. And that's saying that 1 must go on the far end and not be included in the sum. So that's going to be 2, 4 in some order. We can do some knight's move stuff now. We have a 3 here, locked out of those. It also can't be here by knight's move, so that must be 3. This 3 is ruled out of there, and that by knight's move, so that's a 3. And these 3s lock out all of those, so that must be 3. Look at the 1 as well. 1's locked out of here, so it must be there. Knight's move and Sudoku rules out those. 1 go must here. Now we are basically down to only 2s and 4s everywhere. So I'm going to type those in initially, but it's going to be kind of redundant. But we'll see the only thing we can use now is the arrow. So this is 3 with a 1 on it. It must have a 2 next to it. And that completes the rest of the grid. And there's that. So I have one more I made here, but I need to pull that up off stream. So I'm going to hide all this for a second while I pull it up, because I should have done this before, but I did not prepare. I really don't want to do this in another video. It's not published on Logic Masters yet, but I will post it right after this. Okay. This is definitely the toughest. I've found people still were solving this in a few minutes, which, again, people are generally pretty skilled at this stuff. But this was kind of designed to be definitely a little tougher than just a traditional snack puzzle. Because we have a couple rules here. There's a lot of pencil marking and even some coloring that's helpful here. So this is called Mini Snack Break, with a kind of a joke about me being short. But it's also a play on words about the mean mini rules that apply here. So that's also one that a lot of people don't know what that means, because it's not a crazy common rule. This was my first time trying to create with a mean mini. But so what that says is normal 4x4 Sudoku rules do not apply. So this is a good lesson in reading the rules. Never assume that it's 4x4 normal rules, because in this case it's very much not. So what a mean mini is it's saying that we are still going to be using only 4 digits in the grid, but we don't know what those 4 digits are at the start. It could be 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe. It could be 1, 7, 8, 9, for all we know. Point is, we don't really get that information given. But once we know there's, let's say, a 1 somewhere here, we know that there's 1s in the other spots as well, maybe like that. So it says it's up to the solver to deduce what those 4 digits are. But once you know the 4 digits, it's the same thing as a normal Sudoku logic then, with no repeating in the rows or columns or boxes. To complement that, we have killer cages, which we've already done in this puzzle. We already know, this video, we know what those are. So again, digits sum to the top left number. Green lines, digits must be at least 5 apart here. I do believe that in most of these kind of 4x4s, Sometimes people will say, or at the very least, they'll say that like in a 6x6 maybe that the digits are separated by 3 instead of 5 because we have less numbers to work with. But here they're still separated by 5 because we're using something in the range of 1 through 9. So it makes sense for it to still be 5 apart. If this was a normal 4x4, this could never exist because you couldn't go 5 apart from something that's only in the 1 to 4 range. White dot, these are consecutive. And that's the information we get. So we can get some initial information right off the bat by saying 5 cage is 1, 4, 2, 3. 15 cage is 6, 9, or 7, 8. So we know that the makeup of this will be 2 low digits and 2 high digits, with no 5s anywhere. So that's going to be the makeup of the resulting kind of endpoint here. I'm going to do some coloring here, and I'm going to color these low digits and high digits here. I'm now going to say the bottom half of this must be the 2 low digits. Those must be the 2 high digits. We can now continue to color the grid, even though it's a little ambiguous, but we have the white dot here. And we're saying, well, if we have a low digit, 1, 2, 3, or 4, and we have something consecutive with it, that low digit must be consecutive with another low digit or a 5, if it was a 4 or 5. But we know there's no 5 here. So this must also be a low digit. So that's a 1 with a 2 with a 3, or a 3 with a 4. So now this column needs a high there. This needs another low and high here. Let's look at coloring the rest of this. We would need... Why am I blanking on this? The other thing to look at here is 10 cage. The only way that we can make this work based on the digits above is... Ooh, actually, no, we can't say that quite yet. Let's continue with the coloring. The fact that we have the green line here, separated by at least 5, meaning this will be a low, that's high. This cell sees one of each of them. 10 cage has to be a low digit with a high digit next to it. That's always the case. That's going to be there. I'm really bad at coloring, that's why this will take me a minute, but... So now we have the grid colored in lows and highs there. And so there's a couple ways to think about what's going on here next. Let's type in these pencil marks everywhere. This will look a bit absurd at first, but it will prove useful in a moment. Because now we can look at the 10 cage and say, well, there's a couple options here that don't work. If this was a 4, we would need to have 2 9s next to it. That's kind of just a standard German whisper rule that you can never have a 4 in between 2 other spots of a green line. So that can't be 4, which means this can't be 6. The next deduction is a little trickier to see, but I'm really proud of including this one here because I like this a lot. If this was a 3, this would be 8 and 9. So the 2 high digits of 8 and 9 would break the 15 cage, because that would sum to 17, not 15. So we could say that definitely cannot be a 3. Which means this can't be a 7. So what this means now is we can kind of break up these low digits as one of them will be 1 or 2, the other will be 3 or 4. Because it's either going to be 1 and then 4, and then 2, and then 3 up here. So we can kind of further help these pencil marks along by saying this would have to be 3 or 4 to match up with this to sum to 5. This 3 or 4 would have to match up with that to be a 1 or a 2. That has to be 3 or 4. We can copy this across the whole grid and make it work like that. And the reason that's powerful now is, well, for one, we can say this can't have a 6 here, but I'll come back to that in a second. But more importantly, the only way to make this work is a 2 and not a 2 and a 3 like that. Because if it was 1 and 4, they wouldn't be consecutive. So that's saying we need some consecutive pair that sums to 5. So we could have gotten this a little bit earlier. Because if we just looked at this right from, go back to this point, we could already say that has to be 2, 3, just because it's the only consecutive option that has 2 lows adding up to the 5 that would be over here. But I like doing this way, because this is a little cooler, I think. So that must be 2, 3. So that means any other spot where we have another green digit in the row, we know the 2 of them will sum to 5. So that must be a 2 with it, a 3, 2 and 3, 3, 2. This means 8 here. 8 is taken out from all of these. It also means that 8 must go with 7 to sum to 15. Because that's just the only way to make this work up here. So actually I should not have taken 8 out of all of these. Hold on. Got a little trigger happy there. So that just means take out 8 from those. And saying 8 must be paired with 7, so 7 in the same row here would make it so that way the 15 cage has 8 and 7 in it. The other way to spot this would be if you forget about the 10 cage, you could see this and say, that can't be 6. And the only way to make this work in a way that sums 15 would be 7 and 8 together. So I'm going to keep it with that way here just for now. We'll say 8, 7, 8, 7, 8, 7, and there. So you can maybe tell during this one I haven't solved this one in a couple days, so I was a little rusty on actually how to explain that, but I don't really feel like re-recording this entire video, so oh well. I think that still made sense in the end. Like I said, this was designed to be a little tougher, but it's still probably considered approachable, I think, to most people. It just requires a bit more thought. So yeah, so that is covering all 5 of the Snackdoku puzzles I have released so far. I will probably keep releasing more of them because they're just really fun and quick to make. But I do have a mainline puzzle that I've been trying to work on for the last week and a half, and kept getting sidetracked by Sudoku-con. And then these snacks, and then the Cheez-It one that I also just recorded a bit before this. So I will get around to more of these whenever, and I'll try to keep the videos coming with them. I'll probably, for the snacks, I'll probably keep waiting until I have a couple to show in one video instead of doing small individual ones. But yeah, thank you for watching.